and sort of my brother. He's engaged and will be a stepfather when that is finalized.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to death dates, because that's what everybody started tuned in for. We're going to talk about how to find death dates for your ancestors, but I have to close two things first. There we go. That's fine. Are we having sound issues?
Well, some people are saying it's not very loud, so I'm trying to turn up the volumes.
Okay. But I can also move it closer, which is, I'm just afraid to get too loud because a lot of people say, Devin, you're really loud, but that's because I'm hearing impaired, so we'll see. We'll keep playing with it and see what we can do. All right, so how to find death dates for your ancestors. Now, as we've talked before...
Just out of curiosity, do we do birth dates for Mother's Day and we're doing death dates for Father's Day?
I didn't plan it that way.
Not saying that dads denote death. I'm just wondering if we did that on perfectly accidental.
It was for
mother's giving birth. That makes sense.
It might have actually been.
Your
close
dad's
to
going to kill you if you do something wrong. No, sorry.
We did a birth dates in April.
Okay.
And marriage dates, I just did a blog post about.
Okay.
And now we're doing death dates, and it has nothing to do with trying to kill off your dad.
Okay.
All right, so in the comment section, if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, let me know whose death date you're searching for and where you're trying to find them, where you think you're trying to find them. I'd like to know, like, where people are searching. And while you're doing that, I will proceed with, hold on. All right, there we go. Proceed with some tips. And the first tips, speaking of killing off your dad...
We just said we weren't going to talk about killing off your dad.
I know, but when you're searching for a death date, this tip actually comes from Miles Meyer. He was part of our recent e-conference. And that is, make sure that he or she is dead. A lot of people will see the date 1920, 1930, and just kill them off because that's almost 100 years ago. So certainly they're dead. Now, in the chat, I would love to know if anybody has accidentally killed off a relative before they actually died, and I'm gonna tell you, I did that. I did that. Yeah.
You killed people.
I killed somebody off on my family tree. I am not an actual murderer.
Or murderess.
Murderess, but what had happened, there was a family feud, and my father's oldest aunt, Margie, well, let me rephrase this. There was a family feud, so I didn't really know a lot about my dad's cousins and his aunts and who was living and who wasn't. So I had heard that my great aunt Margie had died because her other brothers had also been deceased. So I was told that everybody on my dad's side of the family, except for his living cousin, were deceased. So I put in a death date because I was a baby genealogist and I didn't know that you needed to actually prove it. And so I killed her off. And then later somebody sent me her obituary. And when I say later, like 5 years later, and I had to go update my family.
And the obituary was only like a year old?
No, it was like that week.
Oh, it was like that week. So you killed her off 5 years prematurely.
Yeah. And that came from another aunt that I didn't realize had not died, but I got to meet her and I got to find out all the stories about my family. So, has anybody accidentally killed off a relative, or is it just me?
So far, nobody said that they've killed off a relative. We have lots of people that with that 1920 to 1930.
Mm-hmm.
June has a Melba that was 106 before she died.
Mm-hmm.
Now Cynthia's got something. My great-great-grandfather in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
So he died around 1895-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Where a representative said that it was law to report deaths to the state, but they really didn't do it until 1901. So that's, one of the cases of, hey, you're supposed to, but you didn't.
Gotcha.
Now, John says, yes, brother of my Welsh second great-grandfather was thought to have died around 1901. Turns out he died in 1917.
There you go. So people misunderstood. You didn't do the killing.
So, John, you're not a murderer.
But you're related to paper murderers.
Yeah, you're related. Ooh, that's a good term, a paper murderer. Uh-huh. We should try that and get that throughout the genealogy community.
Put it hashtag paper murder, so maybe we'll
paper
remember.
Murder. I gotta get here. Hashtag.
He's on my computer.
Murder.
And it's not going well.
Murder.
Okay.
Paper murder. So start using the hashtag paper murder whenever you're killing off somebody or you find somebody that was killed off before they really died.
Exactly. And Stacy, I like what she said. I don't know that I have. I probably did, but I don't know that I have. Right? And so, all right. Anyway, it is okay to make mistakes in genealogy. Just go and try to fix them. So first things first, make sure they're actually deceased. The next thing, and this comes from years and years and years of working with baby genealogists, and that is you need to start at home. And at home doesn't always mean your home. It could be your relative's home. But I had a girlfriend of mine who was looking for her aunt's death date. And she went online and she searched and searched and searched. And for 10 years, she was looking for this death date. I had moved from where we lived because we were searching everything we could possibly search. And after I moved, she goes, I was just cleaning out the attic. And I had a box of letters that I totally forgot about. And in it, it had her cousin writing about the cousin's mother, so this person's aunt, the death date. And it was in her house for 10 years. So start at home. Tell me, what kinds of things do you have in your home or the homes of your relatives to document the deaths of your ancestors? I'm going to go ahead and tell you a couple of, I mentioned letters. Diaries are really important. My mom actually inherited a diary from a Mulford, who's not really a direct line. So
Mumford, wasn't it?
No, it was Mulford.
Mulford, oh. Okay.
Polly Tillenhart Mulford was the common ancestor, but not really. That's a long story for another day. But anyway, I donated that diary to the Ohio State Archives because they were Ohio natives. But in that article, in that diary, the man had written when he had heard that someone had died. So diaries could be useful. Scrapbooks. I know I documented when my mother passed away and my father passed away in my scrapbook. So if I'm going to do it, I know other people would do it. And then I've also seen this. I haven't had them personally, but a lot of Catholic friends of mine said that there are prayer cards given out at the funerals of various Catholics. If you're Catholic, tell me if you're familiar with this in the chat. Prayer cards will often have a death date, and they're given out so people could memorialize and remember the different deceased individuals. So those are just a couple of things at home you might find. Did anybody share some things that they have in their home?
So wills.
Okay.
Funeral cards. That might be sort of like those cards. Death certificates, old Bibles, mass cards for the annual mass, photos.
Oh, mass card. That's a difference. Okay.
What's the difference between a mass card and what you were talking about?
Well, I'm guessing. Help me out. The annual mass may have almost like muster, Aggie muster. They'll have a list of those who were deceased in that year.
Okay.
Help me. You may not know what Aggie muster is, but let me know. Is there just like an annual printout of those people who have died within the last year? All right. Prayer cards all the time. Okay. Oh, not just Catholics give out prayer cards. I had never heard of it until my Catholic friends told me about this in Iowa. So, all right, good to know. I love that we have a community that shares things and we can learn together. That's one of the reasons why we love having you here live, and we love those who comment in our replays.
Letters. Did you say letters? Yeah, you did say letters.
I did say letters. Yep. Good job. All right. Now, someone said earlier about the 1901 and the recording date earlier, which led to my question in the chat, whether you're watching live or the replay. Which locations have you found it harder to locate death records in? I have struggled with Howard County, Missouri. And actually, I struggle with Howard County, Missouri for just about all records that I need for my Swedish immigrant ancestor. I can't find marriage records. I can't find death records. I can't find anything in that county. Have you found a location that's hard to find death records?
No.
Okay.
Not in any of the research that I've done, no.
You were just blessed.
I'm blessed with places that have death records.
You haven't killed anybody off, and you haven't found difficult locations.
I'm sure I've killed somebody off. I think we're all paper murderers if we really get down to it. So somebody says the Maine plantations in the 1800s.
Okay.
Pennsylvania, because they're not online.
Oh, yeah. Online is hard. When it's not online, that's hard.
Northeast Arkansas, around the Missouri border.
Oh, okay.
The Missouri Boot Heel.
I don't know what the Boot Heel is.
I guess there's a little thing of Missouri that's like sticks out.
The little stick down?
Yeah.
Okay. See, is that really a Boot Heel, Mr. Texas doesn't have a panhandle?
That's much more of a boot hill than Texas having a panhandle. So in the chat, if you think that the panhandle, if there is a Texas panhandle, then, say Texas panhandle. And if you think they're crazy, just say Texans are crazy.
Well, you're going to have to put both.
Texans are jealous of Okies because Oklahoma has a panhandle.
They have a pot handle.
No, they have a panhandle.
That is a pot. It looks like a pot. It doesn't look like a skillet pan.
It is a pan. Oklahoma has a panhandle, and it was taken away from Texas because Texas didn't want it, and then they felt jealous, so they decided to call this little outcropping of theirs a panhandle. Debbie, you're wrong.
Debbie's right. Hashtag Texas panhandle.
So, the Missouri boot. Let's pull up a picture of Missouri.
Okay.
Because now I'm curious, is that on the right side or the left side? I want to think it's on the right-hand side of Missouri.
Move your arm.
Yeah, see there, down at the bottom.
Oh, see, I wasn't even
I never heard it as a boot heel before, but
okay,
that makes perfect sense when you say a boot heel.
Oh, and see here, I thought I had hidden it from you all. Okay, so this right here is apparently, let me switch it to the
bigger one.
Yeah, that one. So this little section right here is supposed to be a boot.
And so stop. If you don't know Texas, which of these is a panhandle? Is it that? Is it the one on the left-hand side? Is it the one on the bottom? No. What kind of a pan looks like that?
It also looks kind of like, I've always thought it looked like a funky thumb, like finger gun. Anyway.
No, Idaho's a finger gun. Texas is jealous of all these other states, and so
Texas
they try to pretend.
Texas is big, and we can do whatever we want. Anyway, back to what we were really talking about. So I did see somebody say...
Looks more like a face than a panhandle to me. Thank you, June. It's a stovepipe. Okay, Kevin, a stovepipe. I can agree that it's a stovepipe. That's good.
You're getting on my bad side.
We got
See,
all these
Italy has a boot. Totally agree, John.
Italy is a boot.
And it has a boot.
And it's kicking a ball, which is Sicily.
Yes.
And it is a boot.
Yes, the stream just got derailed. But I wanted to give you guys time to tell me which locations are harder to research. And somebody said Missouri is harder because they don't have newspapers online, they don't have the birth, marriage, and death records online. And I need to talk to an AG to see who's experienced with Missouri to see how much Bern County stuff they might have.
See, and Tiffany says that what it is in northern Arkansas and southern Missouri, the communities all run into each other. And so, which, on borders, that always makes sense because it's like, hey, it might be easier for your little farm to go across the border to get married in Arkansas rather than Missouri. And so unless you know to look there, then... Yeah. And the county seat where those records kept might be farther down even, or they might send them to the state capital, in which case it's long ways away. So, yeah, I can see how places like that could be problems to research because you're always looking in two different places at a minimum. Yeah.
All right. Now, if you're struggling finding death certificates, then might I suggest, actually, I think this is out of order. If you're searching online, that slide was out of order. Sorry about that. I added this because I was like, wait a minute, searching online. Now, if they don't have the records online,
we're going to have to fire our producer for that.
Good, yay! Somebody else can do the slides for a change. Anyway, then stay online and change some of your search strategies. First, you need to be doing alternative spellings. Always. Geisler is always butchered. I know a lot of French names are also butchered. And then Greg, since I know you're in the house, I think Greg is in the house. I saw him earlier. Somebody asked deet names about deet names. I gotta see if I can remember what he was talking about. But French has deed names, and those deed names you have to use either one or both in combination for sure. But I guess the question was, why do they have them, Greg? So if you can answer that in the chat. And then the other thing was, are there any other things you need to know about those deed names?
So here's something that's going to throw some people off. I'm not sure where else it has happened. Elizaveta says, a very old church literally, so this is literally, not the figurative literally, but the literally, was taken from, I'm guessing it's Al or something like that, Norway, to Oslo, Norway.
It was picked up and moved?
The whole thing is what it sounds like.
Man, that would have been cool watching going down the highway, don't you think?
Yeah.
Anyway, but that would make things really difficult.
Well, because it's a really old church, so I'm assuming that it was probably made from stone, at least, or something, and so you're jacking this thing up onto a big thing and moving it. But if you think about that, and you're thinking of the records, let's just say a name for this, that this is the First Baptist Church of Al, Norway, and it got moved to Oslo. But there was already, and I don't know if the name changed, but there was already a First Baptist Church in Oslo, so they named this the Second Baptist Church.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Reorganized First Baptist Church, or the, something. So you might have this records for this church where, hey, your ancestors are from Al. Well, the records now might be in Oslo for those church records because that's where the church is moved to. But not only that, it's a different name now.
Yeah, churches' names do change.
That would be something to throw a loop to people researching. Absolutely.
And we even talked about cemeteries that no longer exist because they were poorly cared for, and then people had to go move their ancestors or get shoveled up by a backhoe. Yeah, that happened to my grandfather. Multiple great-grandfathers. Anyway, also in your online search for different names. Now, this goes back to those deed names because they're used interchangeably. Sometimes I had to search for middle names. Sometimes I have to search for nicknames, like common nicknames. Instead of looking for Margaret, look for Peggy. And then sometimes you have to know your ancestor's nickname because how would you know his name was Red if you didn't really know his name was Red or Bubba or some other crazy nicknames that people come up with. So you have to try different names, try different women, try all of their different surnames that they have, try different locations. There was a comment by Stacy about some places didn't keep these records early enough. And then I also tried different dates. Now, this one was fantastic because there was a transcription error for somebody I was working with. And the person was supposed to have died in 1817. I expanded to a 100-year range because I was like, and I picked up 1871. Because they flip-flop the 17 and 18. So those are a couple of things to try when you're doing an online search. But let's go to, I see where this line's, things got out of order. So there's the slide that you're supposed to see earlier. See, it says change your search terms. It was a little bit out of order. Sorry about that.
This whole thing has just been wrecked now. We got to stop it.
I know. It's all ruined. It's all ruined.
So I just looked up this Al community, and it's 194 kilometers from Oslo to Al, which is like 5 feet in American terms. I have no idea how much 194 kilometers is.
Ask Greg.
It's like 120 miles, 110 miles. That's a good distance.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
sidetrack again.
After you have searched your online records, where do you search next? So we've searched at our home records. We've searched online in Vital Record Collection. Where do you search first? Andy, where do you search first for a death?
A gravestone.
Okay.
Or a death record, death certificate, death index.
Well, yeah, that's after this. Oh. So you've already searched in your Vital Records, your death records.
Okay, we've already searched.
And you've already looked in your house. Where do you search next? So you said gravestones, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Greg, our math genius, he gave you the kilometers.
1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. That doesn't tell me what 194 is, and I have to do math. I don't have the calculator up.
But you have your brain. Well, Tiffany Min says cemetery records, and she's our resident cemetery worker, so that is definitely one that she would look. Find a grave. All right.
Your neighbors or other family members.
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that one. Okay, so there are a lot of alternative records, and I have a blog post that is live I'm going to put that link in the chat so you guys go check in later. It's also, oh, that didn't work out.
It does. It just takes a second. Oh, man. What did you do?
I have no idea. Copy. Paste.
No,
there we go.
paste. Yes. Okay. You must have hit something else.
I hit something stupid. Anyway, so I want you to check out that blog post because there's going to be more than we might talk about here. But my favorite place to start is Find a Grave. Some people have already mentioned it. This actually supports Tiffany's Go to the Cemetery Records. I picked John Farthing. He is at least a name of Jack Farthing, who played George Warlegan in the Poldark series. So if you're a channel member and you can throw in that Poldark hat, now would be a time to use that Poldark icon. But in any case, go to Find a Grave because there are a lot of great things that you can find there, often pictures, and they will just transcribe things. But here's another one I wanted to show you. This is from
Texas A&M.
E. King Gill.
You're on the small one, by the way.
I'm on the small one. I'm sorry. This is E. King Gill. So he is pretty famous in Texas A&M history. He is the original 12th man. I'm going to have you go search 12th man to learn about E. King Gill. But I didn't know what his first name was because in Aggie history, he's always E. King Gill. There's no Earl.
Earl.
But what's really great...
Probably because there's a bunch of other Earls at A&M.
Maybe.
And so maybe that's why. I don't know.
Or maybe he went by King rather than Earl. I mean, he went, yeah. But what's really great is sometimes there will be these, he's got his gravestone. He's got this thing from Texas A&M Aggie football history. So everybody who goes, oh, if you're an Aggie, that's the 12th man. And there as a picture of a statue. There's lots of pictures you can find on Find a Grave. I get disappointed when people don't put a picture of the entire plot. So if you're ever using Find a Grave, put the plot, but sometimes people will put an image of the plot. And then I love when there's extra stuff. Like there's an entire biography here on E. King Gill. I wanted to show you the actual page so we could scroll down, but it's not clicking through. It's going to the next page. But the other things it does is sometimes people will go in there and link families. So you can actually pick up other people in there and you can do a search by surname on Find a Grave and find out who else is named Gill in that cemetery, in that county, in that state. And they've recently added, I didn't see this before, they recently added the ability, so if you have a woman with her maiden name and her married name, you now can search. They will give you the option right there, super easy. Click on search for her maiden name in that cemetery or her married name in that cemetery. So Find a Grave is pretty stinking handy. Oh, Tiffany agrees. I love when photographers show the area around the grave to help people find it if they want to go visit, but also see who else is there. All right. You're going to jump in if there's any questions or stuff throughout. Okay, perfect. If you have a question during this live stream, always put a Q in front of it, and Andy will throw them in as we go. So the next record collection that I like to use is city directories, and everybody knows I love city directories if you've been around here for a while. They are my favorite. They're my favorite because it helps you in the 10 years between census records. City directories are also not just limited to the biggest city directories around, and sometimes they're called rural directories, and that picks up some of the county areas. I know there's city directories in Canada, and I know there's city directories in England because I've just looked at a few of them. If there's city directories in other countries, let me know. It's kind of like a phone book, but before phones were around. So it just was a record of where everybody lived, had their occupation. But in the highlight, you can see that Gertrude Rang is a widow. So you could trace her back in time to the time when either she stops appearing because her husband appears instead of she does, or the time where both the husband and wife are in the city directories. But I have to caution you, city directories were public, and many women who were divorced didn't like to say that they were divorced. And so they often are called paper widows. So we have paper murderers, and now we have paper widows.
Oh, well, hashtag that.
And this confused me for a very long time. I kept looking for a death date for Edward Rang, her husband, and I couldn't find it. Then I found a divorce decree, and then it all made sense. He moved to another city, and he's listed over there. That's why she was able to claim that she was a widow. Otherwise, if they were in the same town, I don't think she would have been able to get away with it. So people did lie, especially women in this time period, about the fact that, so they're widows, but they're really divorcees.
In the city directories, do they ever say that they're divorced?
No.
Okay.
No.
They always say widow, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes the women will not list the spouse, but she did off and on. And so that confused me. So I narrowed it down to a likely death date and never could find anything. And then I stumbled upon a divorce decree. Then I saw a marriage for an Edward shortly after that divorce, and then he moved. And then I knew, he's not dead. She's just lying about being a widow. So I love city directories, but...
So does that make her a paper murderer? Because...
Yeah.
She's a paper widow, which also makes her a paper murderer.
Right.
Because he's basically listed as dead.
Because she told the city directory canvasser that she was a widow.
So you can be both a paper murderer and a paper widow.
I guess so.
So that make you a paper black widow murderer?
Maybe, depending on how many times you kill people, because they don't put all them. They just put their most recent spouse or their preferred spouse that died.
Gotcha.
But you can use city directories, trace them all the way through, and when they stop showing up, that's possible that they died or they moved. But if they're old enough, they probably died.
So do the men ever show up as widowers in the
No.
city directories? They don't ever list that?
I haven't seen it. Now, if somebody has, let me know, but I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Yep. Alrighty then. So the next one, somebody had mentioned newspapers. And newspapers are great. We know to look for obituaries, but newspapers are really great because a lot of times the court proceedings...
Debbie says she's seen widower.
Oh, cool. Go, Debbie.
That-
Send me an image. If you know which have an image, send that to me. I want to see it so I can share it with others and go, oh, see, I'm wrong. But newspapers are good not only to look for obituaries, but also to track probate cases, to track injuries that then may have led to deaths, to track, what are some of the other things? Wills, but that's related to probate cases. I'm blanking out. Crime reports, which could have led to somebody's death. Death by fire, death by anything strange, death by sucking your blood, which is his ancestor.
He didn't die from sucking blood. He just did that to survive.
Okay, I exaggerated
years.
just slightly exaggerating there.
The
But
OG vampire.
he was the OG vampire. But what other things have you guys... transfer of property can also give you a clue. If you start seeing kids transferring property to each other, or if you see parents transferring property to kids, that can also be something to give you some clues, because you're looking for some ranges of where to search. Or sometimes, as a point going to come up later, sometimes the range might be all you're going to get. But don't just look in obituaries don't just look in newspapers for obituaries. Look for a lot of other things. So what unusual places have you, dear viewer, found death dates for your relatives?
So here's one that actually just came in.
Oh,
He was
perfect.
probably thinking of something else, but war memorial rolls on memorial walls or monuments.
Yes, that is a very good one. Like the Vietnam War Memorial, or I just visited the Oklahoma City bombing site and saw all the chairs. Oh my gosh, that is a moving place to be for sure. Unusual places. I'm trying to... I put all my unusual places in the blog post. So, one of the unusual ones that shouldn't have been unusual, but it was, when I was doing indexing for Family Search, I was doing the Grand Army of the Republic, which is members who were Union Army veterans. And in their minutes, they had who had moved in, who had moved out, and who had recently died. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. But then I thought, oh, that is kind of unusual. It's not one of those things I would have thought as a go-to record collection.
Now, somebody before had said, mentioned the mortality schedule on the
Oh,
censuses.
yes.
Now, that's obviously not going to be for all years, but if you happen to have a relative that was born the year before or that died the year before the census, then you can get that mortality schedule and find it.
And speaking of census records, if you're trying to narrow down a range, if somebody drops off and then you do a larger location search and you still can't find them, then it might be a clue that they disappeared. All right. Keep those unusual ones coming. And I'm going to go to the next slide. Now, this one was recommended to me by Eric.
You want to make it big?
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. Recommended to me by Eric Wells of Legacy Left Right. Now, he's been a presenter at previous e-conferences. If you want to join an e-conference, make sure you check that link in the description to check out our most recent ones, or go to familyhistoryfanatics.com/e-conferences. But in tax records, now these ones were from Canada. Yay, Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Keep going.
No, that's about all I know of it.
I also saw Ancestry actually had multiple locations around the world that had tax records. Now, you really are hoping to have a range. See, this is from 1855 to 1919. So if you have a large enough range and you're tracking males, but women can also be in there. But primarily you're tracking males. If you start see them for a number of years and then they stop, they either moved or they passed away. If you start seeing them going and then a wife shows up, sometimes it will say widow. And that gives you clues of when the man may have passed away. So that was one. But it also has to have it depends, because, again, people might have moved. And some people aged out of paying taxes. Can you believe it?
Aged out?
Aged out of paying taxes. It was a thing. So be careful with your tax records, because they may have moved, they may have aged out, or they could have died. But it could give you the clues that you need. And just, again, giving you those ranges. Any unusuals? Photos of Gold Star mothers. Oh, cool. That's a great one. Hadn't thought of that. All right. I have 2 more to share with you today. And then, again, think if I haven't shared one, let me know and we'll keep talking about those. County directories. Now, I mentioned these earlier in marriage records when you're looking for dates, but county histories will often have biographical sketches of prominent people in town. Now, this one actually talks about a church, so the Bethel Church and the different leaders and where they went. So sometimes you can't look in where you think they died. Sometimes you need to look at all of the places that they lived, especially in newspapers. Look at all the places they lived to see in that county history, did they mention him and where he went to die? Because there's one, Mr. McPhears removed to Raleigh, where he died in 1842, and then his successor, so on and so forth, and somebody died. So he is in the county history of where he served previously, and they mentioned where he went to and when he died. They aren't always 100% accurate, because people are fallible, but at least it could give you a clue. And if you didn't have an age or a date or a location, now you have something. Now, finally,
you're just pouring on the Aggie, aren't you?
I am.
Not that I'm complaining.
So, muster rolls are really important. And muster rolls will tell you people who muster in, people who muster out, and sometimes they muster out in military records and they show that they were deceased during that mustering out. But at Texas A&M, because it has a strong military connection and military history associated with that school, we have muster rolls. And we have an annual event where people can submit their names, and we do a roll call for the deceased. And it's like a final school-wide celebration of the people who were former students and who have passed away. Now, I did actually link this through. So check alumni associations for any group you've been a part of, as well as school. Down here, I'm not going to zoom in because these are recently deceased, but we have the name of the person, the year they attended the class, the date of their passing, and if they were part of any Aggie clubs in which to have that information come through. So this is a virtual. I actually went looking for alumni rolls of the deceased, memorandums that were in print form, and I stumbled upon this one. So I didn't choose it just because it was A&M. It was one of those things where like, oh, let me show that. That's pretty cool. So check your alumni association to see what kinds of things that they may have. So what kind of comments have we been having before we go to our wrap up?
Military diaries.
Okay.
So they might mention who in their company died and when.
That's great. I hadn't thought about that one.
My church does an All Hallows Eve for family and friends of members who have passed away in the previous year.
Oh, nice. So that's very similar to our Aggie muster. They just keep it around All Hallows Eve. That's really great tradition. All right. Now, if you have any questions that you want to put either one of us on a hot seat for, go ahead and do that now. We have a little more time than I thought we were going to have. We went through this pretty quickly. So go ahead and put your questions now. It doesn't have to be related to death certificates. So, all right. So the last thing we're going to talk about, and I've kind of alluded to this all the way through, is sometimes close enough as may all you get. Sometimes all you have is before 1850 because one, they don't show up in the 1850 U.S. Census. Two, the wife has a death record of some sort and it says that she's a widow. So you know that he died, and it's not a paper murderess. But you know that he died before that date, and that might be all that you get. Now, I did have a question from somebody on Facebook, I think it was. What do I do when Ancestry won't let me put in after or before this date? Should you put text in the title? Now, I know MyHeritage has the ability for you put a date. You can even put a range. Like, I know he died after this date. I know he died before this date. And that's a really cool feature that I've only seen on MyHeritage. I would love to see it in many other places because that would help in clarifying things. I know Family Search allows about, around, before, between, all of those texts in the title. Ancestry, you guys let me know in the chat. I thought you could put text in the title, but it would definitely...
Chris says on Ancestry you can put aft or beth.
Oh, so you need to abbreviate it. I got it. Okay, that makes sense. So go ahead and put those text in the title. Now, if you're using these services, I hope that you won't take off that after before until you have a validating record. Unfortunately, when I was a baby genealogist, I didn't really know why people kept using the C before the dates, and I would just keep removing it, and then I kept getting locked in. This is the date, rather than people saying, well, it's a guess. It don't really have evidence, but I have things that point me to that this is the likely date. Because sometimes, like in Missouri we talked about earlier, or was it Pennsylvania? Anyway, in the chat you guys had mentioned earlier, some places didn't really have records kept at the time that you needed to be kept. You looked in land records, you looked in probate records, and they were just poor or didn't have anything that needed to be probated. And so you just likely when they were born, when they died, and that might just be good enough. You did your best effort. But don't give up before you've gone to all of these different online sources, offline sources, and so forth.
So here's a question: when is the Southern California Jamboree storybook coming out?
It's out now.
Oh.
You can order it now. Give me a second.
She's going to pull up that. Mm-hmm. So in case you guys didn't know, this is started at the beginning of the year. Southern California Jamboree was doing a story submission. And I think it was like a 600-word story. And anybody who submitted, it was going to be put in this book. And you're saying that book is out now?
Well, you have to order it now.
Okay.
But it's $15.99, And I put the link in the chat, the live chat. So if you're watching the replay, go look at the chat. And it's jamboree.com/stars in your family tree book. And you can purchase the book here. If you haven't watched a webinar, you're too late to submit the 600-word essay, but you can watch the free webinar and learn how to write a 600-word essay, and then go submit that to your local genealogy society and so forth. But yep, that's right there.
So just to highlight, there's 77 stories, and you'll meet famous stars like Houdini's greatest rival, Australia's golden contralto, and the family who helped launch Louis Armstrong's career.
But most of our family stars have nothing to do with show business. Instead, they're soldiers, movie stars, aerospace inventors, and hardworking women and men who kept their families going. I love it. I love it. And I don't know if I got my story submitted or not.
What?
I got all my stories written, and I don't think I ever submitted it. So, yeah. I know. I tried everything. I tried to say, just take my story off the website and put it in there.
Tiffany, you say you paid for and missed the webinar that you had recently. I can still watch all of that, right? Yes, you can. You should have gotten that email with those links. And if you didn't, then just email us back, Tiffany, and we will send those to you again.
Yeah. Awesome.
And there was another question. Okay.
Yes,
Scroll up. Scroll up. Why am I telling you to scroll up? I can scroll up.
Yeah, I promoted it on, and I don't think I ever got mine in because I was too busy like promoting and teaching and telling and la la la, and I don't think I ever got it in.
All right. So Tiffany asked, any ideas where to search for a death at a county poorhouse?
Poorhouse.
Sometime around 1901 in Cherokee County, Kansas. All right, so first let's go look at the wiki at Cherokee County, Kansas and see. So we're going to the Family Search Wiki, and we're going to look up Cherokee County, Kansas.
It's familysearch.org.wiki, but I just always Google search it.
So Cherokee County, Kansas. All right.
Okay, and so
we're
the
looking
death
for
date.
a death.
Okay.
So when did they start with deaths? Okay, so this is after they started with deaths, although
It's an asterisk.
asterisk, and look at where the asterisk says.
It says statewide registration for birth started in 1911, compliance by 1917. So you have...
It's iffy here. We got from this 1893 to 1917, where they may have been recording it in some places, but not necessarily all places in the county.
Okay. It's after the county boundary changes. There was just one in 1860, so that doesn't apply. And then, all right, let me zoom back out so we can actually see it better. And we're looking for a death?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing we do is we look to see, do they have any, the vitals are always done at the bottom.
Well, go up and look at poorhouse to see if they have poorhouse records or something. Okay.
Poorhouse would likely be in the court.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the wiki, they don't have anything.
Listed. Well, that doesn't mean there's no records. It means they don't have anything listed on the wiki.
Right. So it is a voluntarily contributed webpage. And so somebody needs to find that information to put it on here. So a couple of places that I would recommend searching if you're looking for poorhouse records. Go to the Kansas. Check the Kansas State Archives and the state library to see if they actually have records kept, if they know about that. You can also contact the county, Cherokee County Courthouse, and see if they also have, if they know if there's a county archivist, and ask them about that, because they could be kept at a local level, they could be have been submitted to a state level, and you just have to keep asking people, have anybody heard of the Poorhouse Record Collection? Has anybody heard of the Poorhouse Record Collection? Check the Kansas Genealogy society and historical societies. Sometimes we only focus on genealogy societies, but we also want to check out the historical societies. I would also check for university libraries because they may have special collection about the poor and impoverished in a particular area. And a lot of times it's not necessarily the closest university to the county, because it all depends on who's at that library starting the collection, really, is what it comes down to. You can go to Archive Grid and WorldCat and type in the county poorhouse, because that is actually searching all the university collections for the title. Also check to see if it has a different title. Maybe they call it something else.
And June actually has a couple of things. So sometimes they're called almshouse. I know that's a term in England, at least.
They have it in New England as well.
Or a county farm.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Perfect. So there's a couple of other names that might be used for this. And for this record collection. But Tiffany says that, yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to take a trip to Kansas. Yeah, probably.
Well, start on the phone.
Yeah.
You would be surprised.
And email.
It's the phone and email. You would be surprised how many librarians and archivists can respond to you. It'll at least get you pointed in the right direction. And you may have to do a trip to access the records offline, because they're probably not digitized. They're probably going to be the last things to be digitized. But you want to at least do all the groundwork that you can from home to figure out where you need to go. The reason why I say this is because in Texas, we actually have a main state archive, but then we need also, did they call them depositories rather than repositories?
Regional repositories.
Yes. So most people think of repositories, but they're called depositories, and they have regional ones. There was a Sam Houston one not too far from where we lived in Northeast Houston, and they had a whole lot of things that were just in their collection. So sometimes you're going to contact the state archive or library to find out, how do you keep your collections? Is it in the main locations, in the regional locations? And just keep asking. Sometimes they may not know about that specific collection, but they may know about different places where you can look. And that's what you need to just keep asking. Good luck, and come back and tell us what happens. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go try. We are burning up because we don't have an AC here in our house. It is super, super hot and super dry.
Super hot.
And I am dying.
It's like 90 degrees.
It is a dry 90. Okay, let me rephrase it. If I go outside right now, it will be cooler outside than it is in our office.
Yes. Well, that's because our office is enclosed and we have all the bright lights just...
No, just inside.
Heating us up. Well, the bright lights don't help to heat us up.
But we're also inside. Can you tell we're married for arguing? Yes, I know people are going to tell me 90 is not hot. You're right. But it's hot in my studio and I'm dying, so I'm going to go outside and, I might even go sit in the cold hot tub. We don't have very many pools around here, so I'll just go sit in the cold hot tub and cool off. Y'all have a great week. If you have more questions, be sure to put them in the comments. Share this video with everybody and their dog, and be sure to come back soon. We are almost at 50,000 subscribers. When we do get to 50,000 subscribers, we're going to have a giveaway. But hint, 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 you better be on our newsletter list if you want to win some prizes.
Because then you're not going to know when we're giving them away.
Exactly. So... And I won't have your email to coordinate getting you your gift. So get your hiney on that email list. Tell everybody and their dog about Family History Fanatics. Let us know your success stories and your frustrations with death certificates, and we will see you next time.